time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming. You have chosen, for whatever reason, to turn into another horrible game review. A couple of disclaimers, as usual, at the top. Number one, the word horrible in the title of this does not necessarily refer to the game itself that I'm reviewing, but instead the content. I do snap judgment reviews, which means I only get a few hours with this, between 5 and 10, and I just want to give you, the everyman, an idea of whether you should waste any time on it, or if it's fun right off the bat, so kind of a snap judgment review. Number two, I don't give scored reviews. I don't believe in them for video games. I think it's one of the most subjective forms of art. So therefore, I'm going to give you the game's overview, what it's about, if there's a story, that sort of thing. Then I'm going to give you pros in my opinion and cons in my opinion, as all reviews are. And then I'm going to tell you whether I personally am going to stick with it outside the purposes of this review itself. That all said, I do want to say one other thing. This is the first time I have been given a task to review a game by a listener. PhilthyPhil, this is for you. He requested this review, and the review is for Worms W.M.D. From Games Pass. So what is Worms? That's where we start, right? Worms is 2D. You look at it from just a 2D perspective, and you have kind of like a landscape, which with Worms just kind of like dotted alongside of it. Now the landscape is fully destructible via a whole bunch of weapons. The worms can also move very slowly in very small amounts, inch by inch, and they have just an arsenal of weapons available to the team. Anything from Uzis and machine guns to big rocket launchers to airstrikes to all sorts of things. Some of these weapons are timed, as in you can't use them right in the beginning. Other weapons have limited amounts, stuff like that. The strategy and the strategy comes in positioning your worms in the beginning of the game, and then trying to figure out how to get into the best position, who to shoot at, how to do the most damage. The actual skill in the game comes into figuring out how each weapon works, which they work in very different ways. Some have very small range, but either way you have like a pointer, and then when you fire, that worm's turn ends. Every team involved in it takes turns via worms. So if I have 5 worms and you have 5 worms, one of my worms will go, one of your worms will go, one of my worms will go, one of your worms will go. It's very conversational in that manner. You also have a wind factor in the game, which changes on each worm's turn. And this can alter your long-range bazooka shots, as well as your grenade throws. And this makes the game very interesting. It gives you some real skill to how much force you put into the throw, and where exactly you're throwing it into the wind. There's some crazy shots online where people fire into the wind and the bazooka goes in the opposite direction and hits the target, and that's what they meant to do, which is kind of crazy to me. A little history on the Worms franchise is Team 17, and it's one of the games that put Team 17 on the map. It's the reason that there is a Team 17. They had Worms all the way back for PC, the first one, which had the worst graphics you've ever seen, but was basically this kind of game, just in a bitmap form. Then Worms 2 and Worms Armageddon are absolutely legendary PC games. Just the depth and breadth of how much cartoon violence you can get down to with those games are absolutely exquisite. I had it for my PC, and the other thing that was great is you could have it on any PC. You didn't need a gaming PC for those games. So it was really awesome back in the day. The options in Worms Armageddon was out of this world. You could have any weapons, you could change anything you wanted in a game type, anything for the setting. You could customize all your worms, you could customize them any way you wanted. You could store a bunch of teams on one computer so that you could have a whole group of friends who come over and just take turns on one computer. There was just so much you could do with Worms to Armageddon. So all of that said, Team 17 has stumbled a little bit with Worms in the past. They've done a lot of 3D versions, didn't really hit. A lot of other stuff that just They didn't really land with the populace en masse. Worms W.M.D is supposed to be kind of a console return to fashion. It is stripped down. There are less options than were in Worms 2 Armageddon by far, but it's also streamlined. It's definitely made to get you in the action a little bit faster. With Worms 2 Armageddon, you could spend hours just customizing a team and never actually get to play. Whereas with this one, the team selections are pretty quick and easy, and a lot of the diverse options for your customization come from unlocks from playing the game itself. So it's definitely streamlined more towards getting in there and getting into the action. With this new edition comes some new weapons, as well as some streamlining weapons. From what I noticed with my 5 hours of play, there was nowhere near the amount of weapons or different weapon types available in previous versions. There were like 4 or 5 different types of airstrike back in the day, tons of different grenade types. Those don't seem prevalent in this game. Or if they are, they're behind an unlock after much more wins than I was able to get. In any case, they also added these vehicles, which we're going to talk about later in the pros and cons section. But basically, your worm can get in them. It gives them much more movement that allows them to move around and do these big, massive attacks. The vehicles include like a mech, a car that can fly, an old World War I style bomber that you can take off and fly around, a helicopter with a machine gun on it. They also added random gun turrets around the level as well. As far as the mode options, you can play casually. You can also play locally. There's no problem with that. And then, of course, you can play ranked match online by queuing into their automatic stuff that they kind of laid out for you, and it'll match you with somebody who's looking for a ranked match, which will get you the most points for unlocks and stuff like that. There also seems to be a campaign. I didn't try it. I have no interest in it in this kind of setting. I hope you guys don't ding me for that, but if I'm playing Worms, I'm playing it for multiplayer. I think everybody else out there is too, so that's what I focused this review on. All right, with all that said, that brings us to the pros and cons. Okay, so for pros, it's really nice that they're back on the 2D. There's a lot of this game that feels like the old school Worms Armageddon. A lot of the way the mechanics work, the shooting the bazookas, the throwing the grenades, the way the ground explodes, and just the funny things that the worms say. So that kind of hit me in the nostalgia spot a lot. Worms 2 and Worms 1 were games that me and my brother played a ton of with all of our friends. We would huddle around the computer with like 5 or 6 people and just take turns playing Worms for hours. We loved that game. So this kind of like brought me back to that, which was really nice. I really enjoyed that. There's also something to be said about the streamlining in this that I enjoyed. There's a lot of extraneous stuff that you don't quite understand how it would work. Like Worms Armageddon was very technical when you were putting something together. This is not, and that's nice. However, it's really all I can say on the pros, unfortunately. So we're going to have to go to the cons. So, cons. My biggest con. It seems like to streamline this, they stripped down some of the magic that was in Worms 2 Armageddon. And in fairness, everybody out there, you're probably saying, well, this guy's biased because he played Worms Armageddon 2 so much, he wants that again. You could be right. I'm not necessarily going to argue that, but I got to kind of call it like I see it. The fact that I can't do as much customization as I want is really, really frustrating for this. And I would like to see more customization options just unlocked for me right at the beginning. That's just the kind of Worms experience I want. Number 2, there's not a lot of players on this right now, at least not casually. While I went into some queues and I timed some queues, and I never found a match in casual, which was a real bummer to me because that's how I would have preferred to play a game like this. And casual is the thing that allows you to have 3 or 4 players in a match with 3 or 4 teams, and it allows you to kind of mess with the weapons and stuff. But there was just nothing available. And maybe I was playing at an off time, but still I feel like if I go in and I don't find a game right away, there's something wrong there. The ranked match, on the other hand, I was able to get in pretty quickly. I think my longest queue was about 3 minutes tops to get into a ranked match. Usually, I got in pretty fast, so that was nice. But the queue times on the casual side, which is more what I would have liked to do with this game, was not there. So that brings us to my final con, and it's a big one. These vehicles that they added are overpowered and ridiculous. Like usually you can move your worm a little bit, and you can get a little tricky with like a ninja rope or a teleporter that the worm can use. I noticed in the ranked matches, all the ranked matches seem to be like this race to get one of these super vehicles, because once a worm was in it, basically you could use your entire 30-second turn timer to just destroy everything in your path, including other people's worms. And while this could be fun if you're in it, it is not fun when you're on the receiving end, and it is really just a race to get in it. I never noticed anybody taking a disadvantage from getting in one of these walking death machines, and I thought they were just a little bit overpowered. I would have rather had, if you wanted overpowered stuff to end matches quickly, I would have rather timed overpowered stuff in the weapons tree. Like the old school carpet bombs or banana grenades from the original game, or the holy hand grenade, stuff like that. That instead of this. So it was a little bit of a bummer to me. Just want to say that. So whether or not I'm going to stick with it, probably not, unfortunately. I will say I definitely want to get some people over. When people coming over, it becomes a thing yet. Have a big local match with them, because that's where I had the most fun with this game, and I think that is still prevalent here. There is local match gaming. I wasn't able to do it because, obviously, the situation. I wasn't able to have anybody over to play with me. But I hope you can put it all to one controller and just take turns passing the controller around like the old computer days. And even if everybody has to have a controller, still just having everybody over and just having a fun game of Worms sounds great to me, and that would be good. I'll probably play it for that every once in a while, but for the overall most parts, I don't see any need to get ranked on Worms. I would much rather have a bigger casual queue, and there just really isn't one there right now. So like I said, if my friends want to play with me, I will definitely play with them. Otherwise, I probably won't be going back to this so much. So I hope this helped everybody out there. That's the end of the horrible review. You guys can go ahead and check us out on Facebook at OldManGamingTH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. Join our Discord. The link is in the description below. And you, too, can pick one of the games that I review. Just like PhilthyPhil did this week. I can't always do the games that you want me to review right away, because there's big games coming out that I have to jump on. But if I can, I do it, just like I have here. So thank you, PhilthyPhil, for your suggestion. I hope you enjoyed this review. This helped you out, and I hope this helped everybody else out there as well. And as long as you guys keep watching and listening, I'll keep making them. See you guys next week.